Good afternoon, guys. It's Asteroid here, and welcome back to episode 2 of my tuition series. In the last video, we took a look at kick drums and sub bass lines, and in this video, we're going to be looking at the mid basses and acid lines. This is probably one of my most requested videos so far, so I really hope that the content that I use for my tracks will help you guys as well going forward. So I'm just going to jump straight in. You may want to grab yourself a drink and make yourself comfortable, because I'm not sure how long this video is going to take. But if we just start by opening a new MIDI track, I'm going to just color this blue, and then I'm going to name it low mid roller, sorry. So basically what we're going to be looking for here is another rolling bass line that kind of fits together with the sub but doesn't conflict with it too much, and really just operates from the sort of 150 hertz upwards range. The best thing about this, not to overcomplicate things at the moment with bass patterns, because of course you can have many different bass patterns, but I will leave you guys to experiment and explore that. So if I move the MIDI file down to this channel, we'll stick with a kind of 3/16 rolling bass line for now. You know, kind of more obvious in tech trance than it is in uplifting trance, but it's my favorite for that kind of rolling energy. So yeah, it's basically the same MIDI file that we used for the sub in the previous tutorial. So I'm just going to get rid of these plugins down here so we can start everything from scratch, bar the sound design, of course, because that would take forever. Okay, so I'm just going to open, I think we'll use Spire for this one, for the low rolling mid bass, because they do have these kind of really nice low mid tones, a kind of knocky, plasticky effect that gives quite nice energy. For the purpose of the tutorial as well, I've already saved the presets, because to go trawling through sound banks or design them yourself from scratch would take a lot of time, and these videos would end up being hours and hours and hours long. So just to keep things moving along nicely, I'm going to go to Spire. Oh, sorry, I've gone to save preset there. I want to go to load. Load preset. We're in Spire and low mid roll. So we're just going to take a listen to that on its own first of all. Close this window. So we're just going to take a listen to the low mid rolling bass line first of all. Okay, so as you can hear, I think that's an octave too low. That's definitely going to conflict with the sub, so I'm just going to move that up one. For anybody who's using Ableton, a really quick tip to just move everything up an octave is to highlight all, then hold down the shift button and hit the up arrow once. Okay, so let's just take a listen to that. Okay, much better. I can hear that it's got perhaps reverb and delay on top. Let's take a look. Okay, so the reverb isn't doing anything really, and the delay, yeah, there's a little bit of delay on there, so I'm just going to mute that for now. I may turn it on a little bit later on just for some sort of extra texture, but we'll leave it off for the time being. Then I'm going to drop in a low cut, or some people refer to it as high pass. I call it a low cut EQ. Okay, so we're just going to listen to it again on its own. Okay, so as you can see, there's quite a lot of low end information here that's going to conflict with your sub, which we don't want. So I'm just going to use a low cut to remove that content there. Okay, I think that sounds about right. So we'll just we'll play that in context with the sub bass. Okay, so it seems to be conflicting a little bit there. Very, very little, of course. It doesn't sound too bad, but I think maybe if we turn the delay on a little, maybe it will just add a little bit of stereo just to kind of get it out of the way of the sub. Let's see if that works at all. Okay, I think that sounds okay. Maybe we'll go to 160. Okay, cool. I think it's just a case of mixing it now, volume-wise. So let's start a bit lower. Okay, I think that sounds quite nice. So let's take a listen to it in context with the kick and the sub. Okay, I think that sounds quite nice. I'm not going to add anything else at this point, because once we have a few mid-bass layers together, I'm going to then put them in a group channel, and then we'll do the kind of mass effect in the group channel itself. So just a little bit of EQ for this one. Now I'm going to move on to the kind of main mid-bass, the kind of gritty main one that's going to take up most of the space and give it that real sort of trance sound. Okay, so again, we're just going to label this one. I'm going to call it main mid bass, or main mid bass. Okay, again, we're going to use this same MIDI file. And again, I'm going to get rid of the plugins here. And then we're going to open up, we'll try Silent on this one. I think Silent is the one I've saved the preset for. Or was it Spire? I think Silent. Okay, so there are a bunch of nice kind of mid-bass sounds in Silent anyway, especially if you take a look at the which bank is it? Okay, I don't seem to have them in there. It's strange. Okay, yeah, because I haven't got my external hard drive plugged in. Alright, so scratch that. I'm just going to load the preset in. So we go to Silent, and we're going for main mid roller. So let's take a listen to that on its own. As you can hear, it's already got quite a nice mid-bass sound. You know, there's nothing really major going on inside the synth. Very basic EQ. So we're just going to do a little bit of treatment now inside the effects chain. Starting with a low cut EQ. So I'm going to use EQ8 again. Then we're just going to take away some of the low end. Okay, I've just realized that maybe it's an octave too high. It doesn't really have that kind of gritty kind of grunt that I was looking for, so we'll try and move that down an octave. Okay, that's the one. Okay, so got a low cut on there. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit of saturation just to kind of warm up the mids a little bit. So I'm going to use the standard Ableton Live saturator here. If you do have the Fab Filter bundle, then I would definitely recommend using the Fab Filter Saturn for kind of mid-bass saturation. It's really nice. It's one of my favorites. However, I am trying to stick to the kind of Ableton Live plugins for the sake of these videos. Okay, so I'm just going to bring the bass down a little bit, say around -15. I'm going to leave everything else as it is, and then I'm just going to add some drive to taste. Okay, so I'm going to disable the saturator now just to see if you can hear the difference. It will be minor, but it's just like kind of little processes that we're going to add on top of each other for a final end result. There you go, it's just kind of thickened the mid bass up a little bit and giving it a bit more bite. So I'm going to try and possibly add a little bit of kind of high mids and highs on the EQ as well, just to bring it out the presence a bit more. Okay, I think that sounds quite nice. So now what we're going to try and do is have a listen to it in context with the low mid roller. Okay, I think that sounds quite good. So we're just going to listen to it in context now with everything. Okay, I think we're getting somewhere now. So they're kind of the main kind of thickening layers, I guess. So now we want to add a couple of layers extra for just a bit of texture and a little bit of kind of a little bit more bite and a little bit more kind of resonance, I guess. Okay, so we'll just leave that like that for now. Again, we're going to tweak the volumes as we go, and once I've added it into the group channel and added all the processing in there as well, then we're going to have to adjust some volumes as we go too. So please do bear that in mind. Obviously, it's got no sidechain on there either at the moment, so we're going to really use the LFO tool to just kind of give the bass a bit more energy, a bit more aggression, a bit more swing, and leave some room for the kick and the sub to kind of really shine through. Okay, so next layer, insert MIDI track again. I'm going to call this mid delayed. So realistically, we want to be looking for something with a really nice delay this time, just to kind of fill out the sides and give it a bit more texture. Change this to blue as well. Again, as you can see, guys, I'm not doing anything particularly difficult with the MIDIs. I'm just kind of dragging and dropping and using them from the previous channels. Just for ease of use and for the process of the video not taking forever. Okay, cool. So mid delayed, we're going to use Spire again. So reveal sound, Spire. And then I'm going to load the preset. And we have mid delayed. Okay, so we're just going to take a listen to this one on its own so you know what you're looking for when it comes to working on your own tracks. Okay, that's got a really nice delay, but I fear that it may be an octave too low, possibly. Okay, I actually prefer it an octave lower, but it just means we'll have to take off more of the low end. It does have a nice delay setting though. So again, I'm going to jump into EQ8. And this time we're going to take quite a lot of the low off. Again, you know, because we're only using this as like a textured sound, then the kind of importance of taking away all that low end isn't really, it's not a massive issue. And we just kind of want it to sit with the mid bass really. So if I solo it with the mid bass, okay, I think that sounds okay. Maybe take a little bit more. Okay, so you can hear the effect I'm going for. It's really just to kind of add a little bit of texture, I guess, and you know, and really sort of utilize the delay more than the bass sound itself, I suppose. Okay, so I think that sounds alright at present. So I'm just gonna go in and add a top layer. Okay, we're gonna call this, we're gonna give it a color, and then we're gonna call it High Roller for all you gamblers out there. There we go. Okay. So again, I'm going to drag the MIDI down. So I've used the same MIDI throughout just to keep it easy. I'm going to solo this one, and we're going to get rid of this. And we're going to use a similar sound to the main bass line actually in silent. Load preset. Mad Hitter, as in Mad Hatter. Okay, so we'll take a listen to this on its own. Okay, so as you can hear, it's kind of similar to the original main mid bass sound. So again, we're going to give it another low cut here. Okay, so that was too steep a cut, so I'll come back to the original one. So we're just gonna, I'm just gonna solo both the main mid bass and the high roller together, just to give me a bit more idea of the mix. Okay, so again, it's just giving a bit of texture in the top there. So let's kind of add these in one by one. We've got the kick and the sub. Then the low mid roller. And the main mid bass. Then the mid delayed. And the high roller. Okay, so now that we have our 4 layers kind of going on, I'm going to set up a group track. We're going to call this mid basses. And I'm going to listen to I'm going to solo the mid basses on their own, just while I work in the group channel. Okay, that kind of sounds nice, I think, but we may need to adjust the levels again in just a second. So to tighten things up, I'm going to add a glue compressor. Okay, so I'm going to leave the attack, the release and the ratio all as they are. And we just want a kind of subtle tightening really. So I'm just going to pull down the threshold until I feel it suits. As you can hear, it's just tightened things up a little bit, but in doing so we've lost a little bit of volume, so I'm just going to turn the makeup up just a touch. Okay, so next I'm going to add, again, some saturator, pretty heavy this time on the group channel. First of all, I'm going to turn down the bass. On the group channel, we're going to try and give them a bit more width down here, so I don't know, 80 or 90, I guess. We'll try 100, and we'll kind of roll it back in and see where the supposed sweet spot may be. We're going to give it a little depth boost as well. You know, again, the glue compressor was just for some sort of basic tightening. The saturator is just to add a bit of kind of aggression and bite. So we'll check out these two processes in the group channel and see how they sound. Okay, so we're going to add some drive now just to really kind of grit up the bass line here. Because of gain staging as well, guys, I would highly recommend not having red lights anywhere. You know, you don't want anything in the red at any point anywhere in your track, even from the original source sound if you can help it. So for example, like here where we may have Spire, always bring the volume down on your synths as well to make sure you're not in the red up here. So right from the original source, making sure it's always in the green, because that way then you don't get any sort of buildup of digital clipping. You may not hear it essentially with one or two tracks, but across the whole track it really does add a kind of annoyance for people with trained ears. So just be mindful of that. The beautiful thing is, a lot of the time in most plugins you have an output channel, an output parameter as well. So even if you're, you know, like the drive is set kind of hot now on the saturator, you know, I've given it quite a boost on the drive, so that's obviously pushing the volume up. So now what I'm going to do is counteract it with bringing the output down, just to keep the gains relative throughout the whole stage of the effects process. So as you can hear there, the saturator is really giving the mid bass a lot of bite and a lot of grit. So again, without. I'm not sure how other people work, but for me, saturation is key on mid bass lines, just to really give them presence and that kind of overall bite, I guess. Just a bit more strength. I think that sounds quite good. I've just pulled the output down just 2 dBs because, of course, we're going to be adding some more processing in this chain, and the volume is just going to creep up and up and up, and therefore you might end up with some red lights, which is no good. Red lights are no good, okay, no matter where you are. Okay, so I'm going to add an EQ now, just an additive EQ, just to bring out some kind of bring out some boost that I think that it could really benefit from. So first I'm going to start with a low cut, a steep low cut. I'm going to move this to around 100 Hertz, I guess, just to really roll off any kind of low end bleed that may be conflicting with our sub. I don't know, around 115, I guess, but we'll listen to it in context anyway. Okay, around 130 sounds quite nice. The reason I like it there is because it does actually kind of, you can still hear the sub operating in the lower region around here. Once again, guys, just a quick reminder, when you're listening to these tutorials, I recommend some studio monitors if you have them. If not, then a good set of headphones is good enough, just so you can really hear all the low-end information as well. So yeah, the kick and sub kind of operates in this perforated box here. So we're just kind of trying to pull the mid basses out of that area there. So that's what the low cut is achieving there. As you can hear, without the low cut, there's still quite a bit of confliction from the mid basses bleeding into the sub. So yeah, a little 130 Hertz low cut, and you can hear the sub shine through a little bit more in the low end then. Have a listen again. Okay, cool. So bar the kind of mixing levels, you can still hear the sub bass, and that's kind of what we want to aim for with this EQ. I'm also going to add some more kind of little boosts as well, just for some extra warmth and presence. So just going to try a little one here. Okay, I think that sounds quite nice so far. Just going to turn some more of these nodes on, so we can add a couple more. Oh. Okay. Okay, I think around there sounds quite nice. I'm just giving it a boost generally around the 1k hertz area. It's kind of where things spike, and it's not often a good place to boost. For example, leads and pads, they can sound quite harsh in that area, but I just feel it adds a little bit of crispiness, or crispness rather, to the mid basses. I mean, generally I wouldn't even ever recommend boosting anything like this, but I also recommend listening to your ears, and to me that sounds kind of nice. So again, there's no real right or wrong way of doing it. This is just the way that I do it. So yeah, you know, trust your ears as well, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so mid basses are sounding pretty nice. I really just want to kind of add a little bit more delay now, just to kind of push things out to the side a little bit and give them a bit more, just kind of, you know, add some kind of reflections in any of the gaps that the mid basses may have. So we're going to bring the dry wet all the way down first of all. We only really want to affect the top end of it, really, you know, high mids and highs. Yeah, kind of around that kind of curve, I guess. Feedback at 60 is okay. We're going to leave it on 3/16, and we're going to just add in some dry wet now until it sounds good. Okay, nice. I think that sounds quite nice. Okay, so what we're going to do next, I'm going to use the really simple utility plugin from Ableton. It's basically, you know, where you can just add, where you can automate the gains, because it saves you doing it in the actual channel volumes itself. Because if you have automation for these, it can be annoying when you want to pull the fader up and down. So it's best to do it in the gains on here with utility. So I'm just going to use this though, because it has a really neat mono, bass mono, and kind of width addition parameter. So I'm just going to add a little bit more width, or a little bit side if you like, by just tweaking this parameter here. As you can hear, a lot of the kind of tweaks and additions are going to be quite subtle to begin with. You know, of course, the saturator is the exception. That's made a huge difference. But generally, these little boosts and you know, these kind of little additions of delays, just to kind of tweak the overall sound. Okay, so now we're going to listen to it in context with the sub bass and the kick, just to see how it sounds. Okay, so cool. As you can hear now, the mid bass is far too loud, so we're just going to add in a sidechain first, and this is going to be with LFO tool. Excuse me. Okay, so I kind of saved the preset of the shapes that I use, just, you know, for the process of these videos. But you know, this is the kind of shape that you want. And if you remember in the last video, I mentioned about pulling the release node inwards. If you get any sort of audible clicking from the sidechain itself, that will stop the clicking in the audio, much as it does in the ADSR, or attack, decay, sustain, and release in synths as well. If you get any clicking from your synths, maybe just tweak the attack and the release times inside the synth, and that will stop those kind of annoying audio clicks. Okay, so that's what we've added the sidechain. We're going to listen to that now in context. Okay, cool. I think the mid bass sounds really quite nice now. You know, with the added saturation, has given it loads of bite in the mid range. Obviously, the tweaks in the EQ and that adding that little ping pong delay is kind of just given some you know, kind of, I don't know, trickly characteristics to fill up the spaces, I guess. And then the LFO tool is just for sidechain. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to mix it with your kick and your sub. Now, how I like to do it, I like to mix it to the sub because I usually find that that's the best way. You know, some people will mix with a kick in as well, but I prefer to do it with the sub. So I'm just going to bring this all the way down for a minute and then solo it with the sub. I think that sounds quite nice. You kind of want it sitting really nicely with the sub. You want to be able to hear the sub as well. So let's hear them in context. Okay, I think that sounds kind of nice. Of course, you know, going through my own tracks and into the mixdown stage, I would probably revisit the channels to mix them a little bit tighter together. But I think as a starting point, this is good to be going on with. I generally like my mid bass sitting a little bit quieter than this than it is presently, but we'll take a listen again. Oh, wrong way, -5. Just feel like the sub's a little bit intense at the moment. Okay, cool. So I'm not going to obsess too much over the levels today because we're not talking about mixing today. We're talking about you know, mid-bass sound choices, how I would layer them and how I would process them. So that I feel is covering all bases in terms of the mid-bass layers and then the group processing as well. So I'm just going to leave that there just for the time being. And now we're going to move on to adding some acid sequences and, you know, acid stabs or that kind of thing. Okay, so we're going to call this... In fact, you know what? We could possibly put them in the group with the mid basses too, so that you have the same sidechain effect. Not that that's always the case. In fact, no, we'll leave it outside, so we can have different. We can experiment with different sidechain examples and amounts, and just to kind of see what we can come up with. Okay, so if we call this acid 1. Okay, so I'm just going to draw in a MIDI clip here. Generally, when you're working with ARPs or sequences, you literally just need one long note to trigger. And we know we're in A, right? So I'm going to use A2. I'm going to draw one long note across the whole 8 bars. And that's just going to be used as a MIDI note to trigger the sequence within inside the synth. Okay? So to give you an example, let's get rid of these. And we'll use Spire. I've saved a couple of presets for both anyway, so we can take a listen to a few different ones. Load preset. We'll go for Classico first of all, for a real sort of classic acid sound. Okay, cool. It's quite nice. So we're just going to bring the volume down a little bit, and we're going to add, have a guess what, another low cut. It tends to be the kind of, I mean, as you can see, apart from in the mid-bass main group, I don't really add a lot of boosts. It's mainly kind of just taking stuff away from the mix to create space rather than adding frequencies on top of each other. So we're just going to have a listen to this to try and take away some of the low end. Okay, I'm just going to show you a quick EQ tip here. I'm going to use one band. I'm going to turn the EQ all the way up, and then I'm just going to have a little scan across the top for any kind of harsh frequencies that may be sticking out, just to reduce those and kind of tame them in the mix. Okay, so as you can hear, when the Q is almost all the way up, and you go up to around sort of 12 dBs plus, on this particular area here, I mean, you can hear kind of a lot of high-end ring-in resonances, but you're going to get that with acid synths, unfortunately, because of the amount of resonance they use. But this one in particular has a kind of, it's not just a ringing sound, but it kind of has this woolly or kind of, boxy sort of sound. Have a listen to see if you can hear it again. Okay, I think that sounds better. I'm just going to bring 6 down here. I'm going to tighten the Q up, and I think we can get rid of some of the mids here too. Okay, so let's take a listen to that in context. Okay, we may even be able to try this an octave higher. that sounds quite nice. What I may do here, again, is add another saturator. There we go, we're just using the saturator just to kind of warm things up a little bit. Okay, cool. I think that's kind of sounding quite nice there. Now what I may do here as well is kind of build the acid over time, you know, over an 8-bar phrase. So I'm just going to move the cut off. And then we're going to automate the cut off, double click a node, sorry, at the start. And then we're going to have it climbing in context with the track. We'll have a listen. Okay, I think that sounds really quite nice. As you can see here as well with the pan, I've just moved it kind of just 5 degrees left. You know, just to move it a little bit further into the stereo field and kind of allow a little bit more space for the mid basses as well. Also, what I may do here is add a little bit more delay too. You know, nothing too drastic, but just kind of give it a little bit more space as well. Okay, cool. So that's covering like the kind of classic acid. We're gonna duplicate the channel, call this acid 2, because I'm going to give you another example of a classic one. You know, by classic I mean the kind of more typical sounding acids that you hear in uplifting trance music. So this is okay, so this one seems to have a bit more, I think, phaser possibly on it. Yeah, so this one has a phaser. It actually sounds like it's panning hard left and right. Pretty cool sound. And of course, Sorry, I forgot to disable the filter cutoff when I duplicated the channel. Okay, so this one sounds a little bit more driving, I think, just to kind of run along the mid basses. Okay, cool. So that just kind of adds a little bit of texture to the mid basses. You can also have the classic one running alongside that too. Okay, so it's just something to really kind of complement the mid basses and then have the classic acid kind of taking the front, or taking more of the front of the mix, I guess, or being the more aggressive one of the two. Okay, that sounds quite nice. So we're going to try and work with, I don't know, maybe kind of like a melodic sequence, I suppose, or something, you know, just to add on top, just with some sort of melodic nature or content. So we'll call this acid sequence, or we'll just call it sequence, because, you know, it could be acid, it may not be. Okay, let's have a look. Did I have any saved in? Just having a look here. Did I have anything saved in? Where are we? Desktop. Okay. Did I have any sequences? Classic acids for Spire. Razor blader, roller blader, sharpener. Okay, cool. So we're gonna try Silent next, just to see what we can come up with. Again, guys, as I said, you know, with the sequences or ARPs, you just need the one long note, yeah, just to trigger it. The one long MIDI note. Oh, sorry, wrong button. Oh, sorry guys, I'm using two screens here, so. All right, cool. So for this, we're going to be using the sequence, so we can use this MIDI again. Just one long note. This time we're going to drag in Silent. I pretty much only use Silent and Spire really nowadays. Serum if I'm doing something more kind of wild or psytrance based, then Serum's pretty good for that. Also Zebra 2 as well, guys, well worth a mention. It's a modular synth though, so it does take some getting used to, but if you have the time, I would definitely recommend checking that out. Preset load. I can't remember what these are when I saved them, but we'll have a listen. Okay, so I kind of feel that that's more of a, you know, like a main acid line. So if you were to take away the classic ones, for example. I really like that myself, actually. It's a really cool kind of aggressive acid. It's a really cool sequence. Okay, we're going to try and load the other one in. That was called Sharpener. Once again, guys, like last time, I'm going to leave all of the MIDI files, all of the presets and everything that's used, and share the whole project file with you again. It's something I really wanted to do because I feel that it's something that you guys can go back to. If you use Ableton Live, you can go back to and look over the project. And it's something that you don't get with other tutorial suppliers. So yeah, it's kind of exclusive to my tutorials, and I like to think that I'm trying to give a little bit extra all the time, in case, you know, people don't want to be watching videos all the time. They'd rather be working in projects. So it's just something for you guys to study. Okay, so we're going to load another preset. Rollerblader, whatever this may be. Okay, so these are more acid lines. Again, I'll leave these presets in there for you as well. Try Razor-Blader. Okay, cool. So again, that's more like another acid line, and I'll leave them in the project folder for you in the presets, but that's not what I'm looking for right now. I'm looking for something that's kind of more melodic. To give you an example, I'm just gonna, I think there's some in the Temple 1 bank for Spire. I'm just trying to give you examples, guys, for now. Ever since I did the update to Mojave, I can these are no longer in order, so it might take me a second to find something, but I will try. Okay, so something like this I like. So once you kind of have your, I mean, you're better off creating your own ARPs in the MIDI file, but if you find a nice sequence that nobody's really used before, then that's quite nice too. Okay, so when we've got all our acids and mid basses in the mix, instantly that's kind of added some more depth, you know, to your kind of mid structure, I guess. You can find something that's less, even, you know, less notey than that, less melodic. Something like that is quite nice. That's also quite nice. So yeah, guys, you know, like just looking around for ARPs and kind of filler sounds that may just help with the kind of atmosphere of the track, really. Oh, sorry. So yeah, adding some sequence ideas for depth and kind of, you know, some nice melodic content to really make the track sound like trance music, I guess. I always kind of do that as my next process after my acids. As a general rule, I usually have 4 to 6 mid-bass layers and then, you know, 2 to 3 acids. But because these acids are already quite busy, it's very hard then to get another acid to sit without that. And actually create enough space for them to, you know, to be equally heard. I think they sound quite nice there. Alright guys, so as you can see from all of the processing when it comes to EQs, it's more cutting than boosting. Very simple EQs, because the biggest mistake I made when I first started was I would have EQs that looked like this and even far more extreme than that. On a bunch of instruments, and it just sounded really bad. So try your best to get out of the habit of adding processing because you just think that that's what you should do. Trust your ears and always ask yourself a question before you add anything. Does it need it? You know, does this particular instrument need compression? Does it need an EQ? If the answer is no, then go without. Less is more often with production. So, and it took me, you know, the best part of the 8 years that I've been doing this solo, or 7 years that I've been doing this solo, it's taken me 5 years of that just to learn to not overdo it. So be mindful and try and kind of pick the right sounds in the first place. So we'll take a listen to this one more time. Okay guys, so I've added an extra sequence in there as opposed to acid lines. We've covered 2 acid lines, or 2 different types, 2 that kind of sit well with each other. And then I've just added an extra sequence just as an idea for you to kind of get some atmosphere in your tracks. It wasn't what I was going to cover today, but I just kind of, yeah, used the time wisely, so I just wanted to kind of cover that with you as well. We're just over the hour mark now, and I think that's good for what we need to cover in this session. And if you guys wouldn't mind, perhaps you could feed back to me after this video about what you would like me to cover in episode 3. As I say, mid-basses and acids has been the kind of main one that has been asked for. The processing is nowhere near as complex or complicated as people may imagine. You know, it's just kind of saturation, EQ, compression, and a bit of delay. Yeah, I think, oh, actually we didn't add any sidechain to the acids, so maybe we can do that now. Acid group. Okay, so I'm going to add a sidechain in here. Again, I use LFO tool all the time for sidechain. It's not actually a sidechain compressor as such, but I don't think it's a compressor anyway, but it's useful for sidechaining. So that's the kind of acid or curve you're looking for with acids. Again, just to kind of keep up the aggression with the mid basses and keep the energy up as well. So if we listen to this in context, we may need to boost the volume now a little bit, just where the kind of sidechain is ducking and, you know, majority of the first portion of the sound. So let's take a listen to this in context. Actually, I think the acid line was good. The classic one, acid one, was perhaps better not sidechain, so maybe we'll just sidechain acid 2. Nice, I think that's a lot better. Another thing that you can do, just to add a bit more width if you wanted to, is a neat little trick called the Haas effect, and it's basically a delay where one side is panned hard left or hard right, and then the time of the delay is the parameter that's automated in order to kind of gain the desired sound. It's just it's kind of like a stereo widening effect, I guess, but with a really old school delay technique, I guess. I've got one saved in Audio Racks here, and it serves me well. I'm happy to share it with you guys. Okay, yeah, that's right, sorry. So it's 2 delays, 2 simple delays. One's panned hard left and hard right, and then you just set the time. You offset the time against each other. So I will start down at 1 millisecond, just to show you how much this adds in terms of width. So if we turn it off, okay, so let's listen to that in context in the mix. Okay, I think there sounds pretty nice. It's just, you know, added a little bit of extra width and kind of, you know, helped it to create a bit of space with the mid basses as well, because they too technically, you know, kind of work in the same area. So I've just added that on the group channel to affect both acids, and as you can hear, it sounds pretty nice. Okay guys, I think that's about it for today. I really hope that you find this video useful, and as always, I'm really open to feedback on how we can make the videos better together. And you know, if you enjoyed this tutorial and you know any friends that may benefit from it as well, then please feel free to share it with them, or at least share the details with them. And yeah, I look forward to catching up with you guys, and I'll see you in episode 3.